I want you to picture something for me. It's the middle of the night. You're a father lying awake, and your phone is pressed to your ear. On the other end is your son. He's 19. He's lost out there somewhere in the dark, walking through open country, and he's a little scared. But mostly he's just tired and annoyed and ready to be home. So you keep him talking. You keep his voice in your ear. You tell him you're coming, that you'll find him, that it's gonna be fine. And for 47 minutes, that's what you do. You listen to him walk. You hear his breathing. You hear the wind. You hear him describe the lights up ahead that he's sure are the edge of town. And then, in the middle of a sentence, your son says 2 words. "Oh no," and the line goes dead. You call back, straight to voicemail. You call again, and again, and again. You will call that number hundreds of times before the sun comes up. It will never ring through again. Your son took one more step into the dark, said 2 words, and vanished off the face of the earth, with you listening on the other end of the line. This is the disappearance of Brandon Swanson. And I'll tell you right now, before we even start, I've gone through a lot of these cases. This is one of the ones that stays with you. Because there's no monster in it. There's no obvious villain. There's just a kid, a phone call, an open field, and a silence that has lasted more than 15 years. Let me take you back to the beginning. It's May of 2008. Brandon Victor Swanson is 19 years old, and he's just finished his first year of college at Minnesota West Community and Technical College, out in the rural southwestern corner of the state. If you've never been out there, let me paint it for you. This is farm country. Flat, open land, fields that run all the way to the horizon. Gravel roads that cut straight lines through the dark with nothing on either side, but ditches and crops and the occasional farmhouse light miles away. In the daytime, it's peaceful. At night, when there's no moon, it is about as dark and as empty as anywhere in America. Brandon was a good kid by every account. Friendly, a little bit of a free spirit. He loved music. He loved his friends. He had a girlfriend. He had plans. He was the kind of young man who was just getting started on his life. First year of college behind him, a whole summer ahead. And on the night of May 13th, going into the early morning of May 14th, he was doing exactly what you'd expect a 19-year-old to be doing at the end of a school year. He was out with friends, celebrating. The year was done. They'd made it. At some point in the late evening, Brandon got in his car, a Chevy Lumina, and started the drive home. Home was the town of Marshall, where his parents, Brian and Annette, were waiting. It wasn't a long drive. He'd done it before. Familiar roads, more or less. But somewhere along the way, Brandon got turned around. Now, I want to be careful here, because this is where the story starts to bend in ways that are hard to explain. Brandon was driving these back roads in the dark, and at some point, his car went off the road and into a ditch. It wasn't a crash. He wasn't hurt. The car just slid off into the soft shoulder and got stuck, the way cars do on gravel at night. So he did what any of us would do. He called home. It was around midnight, maybe a little after. His mother answered first. Brandon told her he'd put the car in a ditch and he needed a ride. He told her where he thought he was. He said he was near the town of Lind. Lind is a small place not far from Marshall, a reasonable spot to be on that drive. Nothing about it raised any alarm. His parents got up, got dressed, got in their car, and headed out to come get their son. Brian and Annette drove toward Lind. And here's where the first crack appears in this whole thing. A crack that, to this day, nobody has been able to fully close. They couldn't find him. They drove to where he said he was. They looked. Nothing. So they stayed on the phone with him, trying to work it out together. At one point, to help locate each other in the dark, they tried the oldest trick there is. Brian flashed his headlights. He honked the horn. Out there, in the silence of the countryside, you can see headlights flashing from a long, long way off. You can hear a horn carry across open fields. And Brandon didn't see them. He didn't hear them. They tried again. Brandon, on the phone, looked for the lights his parents were flashing. He couldn't see anything. And his parents couldn't see whatever lights he kept describing either. The lights he was sure belonged to a nearby town. Think about what that means for a second. 2 cars, the same dark countryside. A father flashing his headlights and laying on the horn. A son standing somewhere out in that same night, looking right at the horizon. And neither one can see or hear the other at all. In fact, when the pieces were finally put together later, investigators determined that Brandon's car was found miles away in a completely different direction. The best estimates put him somewhere around 25 miles from where he believed he was. He was out near the small towns of Porter and Taunton, in an entirely different part of that rural landscape. Somehow, in the dark, on those back roads, he had driven far off course and had no idea. In his mind, he was minutes from a familiar town. In reality, he was deep in unfamiliar country, in the middle of nowhere, with no clear way to tell anyone exactly where he stood. And this is the moment. This is the decision that everything turns on. Brandon, stuck, cold, tired, and certain that he could see the lights of a town just ahead of him, made a choice. He told his father he was going to walk. He'd leave the car, head toward those lights, and meet up with them. His dad stayed on the line. That's the part I keep coming back to. Brandon Swanson did the right thing, the smart thing. He kept his son on the phone. He wasn't going to let go of that voice in the dark. So Brandon started walking, phone to his ear, talking to his father the whole way. And they talked. For about 47 minutes by most accounts, that call went on. A father and his son in the middle of the night, one driving in circles trying to find the other, one walking across black, open country toward lights that never seemed to get any closer. I've tried to imagine what that walk was like for Brandon. The ground out there isn't a sidewalk. It's uneven. Plowed fields, tall grass, drainage ditches you can't see until you're in them, fences. And running through that part of the country, cutting through the dark like a vein, is a river. The Yellow Medicine River. A narrow, winding waterway with steep, muddy banks, hidden by brush, exactly the kind of thing you would never see coming on a moonless night until you were right on top of it. Brandon kept walking. He kept talking to his dad. And then, mid-stride, mid-sentence, he made a sound. A short, sharp reaction. The kind of thing you say when something happens suddenly. When you trip. When the ground isn't where you thought it was. When something goes wrong. Fast. Oh no. Or as some have reported it, a harder word than that. An expletive. The kind of thing that comes out of you involuntarily. And then nothing. The line didn't slowly cut out. It didn't fade. According to his father, it just ended. One moment his son was there, a voice in his ear. The next, he was gone. Brian called back immediately. Voicemail. He called again. Voicemail. He kept calling. The phone never picked up again. Later, it was said the family attempted to reach that number hundreds of times. Every one of them went unanswered, into the void. Now put yourself back in that car. You're Brandon Swanson. It's the dead of night. You are somewhere in the vast, dark countryside, and the last thing you heard from your son was a single startled sound and then silence. You don't know exactly where he is. You don't even know which town he's near, because he didn't know either. You are searching a black ocean of farmland for one person who could be anywhere within miles. And your only tool, that phone call, that thread, has just been cut. The family kept searching through the night themselves. And here we come to one of the most painful, and frankly, one of the most infuriating parts of this entire case. When they turned to the authorities for help, the response was slow. Brandon was 19, an adult, and under the rules and the thinking of the time, an adult who'd been out celebrating and then wasn't where he was supposed to be did not automatically trigger an emergency response. There was a mindset, a bureaucratic reflex, that a grown man who goes missing for a night has probably just wandered off. Maybe he's sleeping it off somewhere. Maybe he'll turn up. Give it time. But Brandon's parents knew their son. They knew this was wrong. They had heard it happen. They had heard the, "Oh no," and the silence. They knew, in the way only a parent can know, that their boy was in real trouble out there, and that every hour mattered. That delay, that gap between when a family knows and when the system finally moves, would go on to change the law in the state of Minnesota. But we'll come back to that. The next day, Brandon's car was found, and it confirmed the terrible truth of the night before. The Chevy Lumina was discovered not near Lind, where Brandon had thought he was, but miles away, off a rural road out by that Porter and Taunton area. It was right where the geography said it should be, and nowhere near where Brandon believed himself to be. The car wasn't damaged in any dramatic way. It was just stuck, off the road, abandoned, driver's door telling a story of a young man who got out and walked away into the dark, exactly as he'd told his father he would. So now they had a starting point, the car. From there, the search could finally focus. They brought in a bloodhound. If you don't know much about tracking dogs, here's the thing you need to understand. A good bloodhound is extraordinary. It can follow the scent trail of a single human being across open ground, sometimes days later, picking up the path that person took step by step. It's one of the oldest and most reliable tools there is for following someone who walked off on foot. The dog picked up Brandon's scent at the car, and it began to follow him. It traced his path across that rural ground, following the route he had taken on foot in the dark. And the trail led, eventually, to the bank of the Yellow Medicine River. And there, at the edge of the water, the scent trail ended. Let that sit for a second. The dog followed Brandon Swanson's path from his abandoned car across the countryside and right to the edge of a river. And then there was nothing more to follow. What do you do with that? What does it tell you? It tells you Brandon made it to the river. It strongly suggests that whatever happened to him happened there, at the water, or in it. And it lines up in the most chilling way with that last sound he made on the phone. The sudden, "Oh no," the kind of thing you'd say in the half second after the ground vanishes beneath your feet. after you step off a hidden bank in the pitch dark and feel yourself going down. But here's the problem, and it's the problem at the heart of this entire case. They searched that river. They searched it hard. The Yellow Medicine River, the surrounding fields, the ditches, the banks, the brush. Search teams, divers, volunteers, the whole apparatus that gets thrown at a missing person once the system finally takes it seriously. They looked, and they looked, and they kept looking, and they never found him. Not a body, not a shoe, not a phone. Not a single physical trace of Brandon Swanson has ever been recovered. Not that night, not that week, not in all the years since. He walked to the edge of a river while talking to his father, said 2 words, and ceased to exist as far as the physical world is concerned. So let's talk about the theories, because over the years, people have tried hard to make sense of this, and I want to walk you through them honestly, including where each one falls apart. The first, and the one most investigators consider most likely, is the river. The idea is straightforward and tragic. Brandon, lost and disoriented in total darkness, walking toward lights he thought were a town, didn't see the riverbank. He stepped off it, or slipped down it, fell into the cold water, and drowned. The oh no was the moment he went over the edge. The dog's trail ending at the water fits this perfectly. It is, by far, the simplest explanation. But it leaves one enormous hole. If he drowned in that river, where is he? Rivers like the Yellow Medicine are not vast. They are narrow and shallow in many places. They were searched thoroughly. Bodies in rivers are very often recovered, sometimes far downstream, but recovered. The complete and total absence of any remains after all this time and all this searching is the thing that keeps this case from ever being closed. It's the reason it isn't just a sad accident in the record books. It's the reason people still talk about it. The second theory is that he didn't make it to the river at all, or that he fell somewhere else. A ravine, a ditch, a collapse of soft ground. That he was injured in a fall, couldn't move, and died of exposure out in that country before anyone could find him. But again, the same wall. If that happened, where is he? The areas were searched, and the dog's trail pointed to the water, not to a ditch in a field. The third theory, and this is where people's minds tend to go when the simple answers don't satisfy, is foul play. The idea that Brandon encountered another person out there, or somewhere along the way, and that a human being is responsible for his disappearance. It's possible. You can never fully rule it out, but there's no evidence for it. No suspect, no motive, no sign of a struggle beyond that one startled word. And the geography, the dog, the river, all of it points toward an accident in the dark, not toward another person. And then there's the fourth bucket, the one this case often gets filed under by a certain corner of the internet. The strange one. Because the Brandon Swanson disappearance gets pulled into what people call the unexplained files, the cases that don't fit. And there are details that, if you let yourself, start to feel almost impossible. A young man who was somehow 25 miles from where he was certain he was. Lights he could see that no one else could find. His parents flashing headlights and honking, close enough in theory, and yet completely invisible to him. A scent trail that just stops at the edge of the water. A search that turns up absolutely nothing. I'm not going to sell you a monster. I don't believe this case needs one, but I understand completely why it ended up on those lists. Because when the ordinary explanation, that a tired kid fell in a river in the dark, refuses to produce a body after more than 15 years of looking, the human mind goes looking for something else to fill the gap. That's just what we do. There's something else about this case that I think is worth sitting with for a minute, because it's part of why it gets under people's skin the way it does. It belongs to a small, awful category of disappearances. The ones where someone vanishes while they're on the phone, while someone who loves them is right there, listening. Most missing persons cases have a gap in them, a last sighting, and then a question mark. Someone was seen leaving a bar, getting into a car, walking down a street, and then the trail goes cold, and we're left to imagine what filled the hours after. But cases like Brandon's are different, and they're worse in a particular way, because there is no gap. There's no imagining required. A parent was connected to their child at the exact moment everything went wrong. They heard it. The last piece of evidence isn't a grainy photo or a witness statement taken days later. It's a sound, a human voice, and then its absence. And I think that's the thing that makes this one so hard to look away from. Because every single one of us has been on a phone call exactly like the harmless part of that one. Driving somewhere late, talking to someone we love about nothing in particular, telling them we're almost there. We've all done it 1,000 times, and 1,000 times it ended with a door opening, and a hug, and a glass of water, and bed. Brandon's call started out as one of those, completely ordinary, right up until the second it wasn't. That's the horror of it. Not a dark figure in the trees. The ordinariness. The fact that the most normal night of a young man's life turned, in the space of 2 words, into a mystery that would outlive everyone who searched for him. Here's what I think the honest answer is, and you can disagree with me in the comments, because I genuinely want to hear it. I think the most likely thing is the simplest thing. I think Brandon, exhausted and lost, and walking toward lights that may not have even been what he thought they were, stepped off a riverbank he never saw coming, in water and dark and cold, and that the river took him somewhere he was never found. I think the "oh no" was that exact instant. I think it was an accident, the kind that happens in a second, the kind that doesn't care how good a kid you are or how much your father loves you. But I'll be honest with you, that answer doesn't satisfy me either, because the not finding him is the whole thing. The absence is the mystery, and absence is the one thing you can never solve. You can only sit with it. There is one more part of this story I need to tell you, and it matters, because it's the part where something good came out of all this pain. Brandon's parents, Brian and Annette, did not just grieve and go quiet. They took the worst night of their lives and the awful, helpless gap they had experienced. That lag between knowing their son was in danger and getting anyone with authority to act, and they turned it into something. The result was a piece of legislation in Minnesota that became known as Brandon's Law. The idea behind it was simple and humane. When a person goes missing, law enforcement should not sit on their hands because the missing person happens to be an adult, or because someone assumes they probably just wandered off. If there's reason to believe a person is in danger, the investigation should begin right away. No waiting, no assumptions, no wasted hours that a family can never get back. Brandon was never found. His parents could not save him. But because of them, and because of what they refuse to let happen to other families. There are people out there who got help faster than they otherwise would have. There are searches that started hours sooner. That is not nothing. In a story this dark, it is just about the only light there is. So where does that leave us? Where does that leave Brandon Swanson? It leaves him out there, somewhere in the dark farmland of southwestern Minnesota, in the memory of a father who heard him take his last known step. A 19-year-old who finished his first year of college, went out to celebrate with his friends, got turned around on a road he'd driven before, and walked off into a night that never gave him back. He did everything almost right. He called for help. He stayed on the phone. He kept his father's voice with him. And it still wasn't enough, because the dark out there doesn't negotiate, and the ground isn't always where you think it is. I keep coming back to those 47 minutes. A father and a son, talking, the whole way. And the cruelest detail of all is that Brandon Swanson was right there, listening, closer than anyone in the world. And there was nothing in that final second that he could do. The phone never rang through again. So I'll leave it with you, the way I always do. What do you think happened to Brandon Swanson out there by that river? Was it the simple, terrible accident? Was it something the searches somehow missed? Or is this one of those cases that just refuses to be explained? Tell me in the comments. I read all of them. And on this one especially, I want to know what you think. If this story stayed with you the way it stays with me, then you already know what this channel is about. I'm Grovenfield. The cases that were closed, but never solved. There are more of them right here, waiting if you've got the nerve to keep going. Take care of yourselves out there, and watch your step in the dark.